Hi, this is Dr. A. Welcome to Corner of Dr. A, where psychology is educative, healing, and metaphorical. Today, let's talk about kindness, one of the most celebrated human virtues. It binds communities, softens conflict, and nurtures connection. But when does kindness stop being a gift and become a wound we inflict upon ourselves? When does generosity turn into self-betrayal? Kindness, in everyday terms, is when we go out of our way to do something good for another person, whether it's offering support, giving time, or simply treating someone with warmth. Psychologists call it a pro-social behavior, and research shows it's good for everyone involved. For example, Sonia Lubomirsky at UC Riversdale has shown that small acts of kindness increase happiness for both giver and receiver. Other studies link kindness to reduce stress and even better cardiovascular health. Self-betrayal, on the other hand, happens when we consistently act against what we truly need or believe in. It's when we say yes when our whole body wants to say no, when we silence our own needs to maintain approval, harmony, or the illusion of connection. Over time, this creates a split inside, a life that looks kind on the outside but feels disconnected, drained, or resentful on the inside. This tension has fascinated psychologists for decades. Eric Fromm, in The Art of Loving, warned that love for others without love for oneself becomes destructive. Even Carl Rogers insisted that empathy without authenticity turns kindness into a performance. C. Daniel Batson's famous empathy altruism hypothesis showed that empathy motivates selfless giving. But Yale psychologist Paul Bloom argued in against empathy that unchecked empathy can backfire, making us give in ways that are irrational, draining, and harmful to our boundaries. A 2017 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who overgive often feel more burnout, more resentment, and less clarity about who they are. And organizational psychologist Adam Grant in Give and Take showed that while givers can succeed, those who lack boundaries tend to be exploited, while strategic givers, those who combine generosity with self-respect, are the ones who thrive. I often tell my patients, kindness is like pouring water from a jug. If you keep filling others' glasses without refilling your own, one day the jug runs dry, and a dry jug cannot quench anyone's thirst. Or think of a tree. A healthy tree draws nutrients from its roots. If it gives all the nutrients away to other trees or to the vines wrapping around it, it would collapse. And ironically, the vines would collapse too, because they never learned how to sustain themselves. What looks like kindness can sometimes disable growth in others. This is the paradox of helping versus hindering. Teaching someone to fish is help. Handing them fish every time they are hungry may feel generous, but it can also keep them dependent. And when they call you cruel for not handing over the fish, sometimes the most loving act is to accept that level. Because, as Shakespeare wrote in Hamlet, I must be cruel only to be kind. One of my favorite quotes. Fairy tales give us warnings. In Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, she sacrifices her voice for legs, hoping to gain human love. But her sacrifice dissolves her into the sea foam. The lesson is stark. Kindness without boundaries erodes the self until nothing remains. Another story. Remember the goose that laid golden eggs? It warns the opposite way. The farmer kills the goose to get all the gold at once, destroying his source. When we betray ourselves endlessly to give, we kill the goose within us. Kristin Neff's pioneering research on self-compassion shows that people who treat themselves kindly are not less kind to others. They are more sustainably kind. Those who neglect self-compassion often fall into what psychoanalyst Karen Horney called the tyranny of the shoulds, living for others' expectations instead of their own authenticity. Self-betrayal hides in everyday phrases like, I don't mind, or whatever you need. Over time, these micro-sacrifices accumulate like compound interest, leaving us anxious, depressed, or physically ill. Neuroscience explains why. Chronic self-suppression activates the body's stress response system, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Cortisol floods the system, and prolonged exposure damages the immune system and emotional regulation. What starts as kindness turns into biology betraying us from the inside. Why do we do this? Often because we were trained to. If you grew up in a household where love felt conditional or where emotional neglect or abuse made you adapt to survive, you might have become hyper attuned to others' moods. Maybe you tiptoed around to avoid conflict, stayed quiet to avoid punishment, or worked hard to keep others pleased. These were survival strategies. Trauma researchers like Bessel van der Kolk in Body Keeps the Score show that children in unsafe environments often learn to abandon their own needs in order to stay safe. As adults, this turns into tolerating toxic relationships, fawning, or ignoring warning signs. Instead of saying, "This is not safe," we deny and adapt. That denial is self-betrayal, dressed as kindness. The paradox is clear. True kindness requires boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls, they are frames. A painting without a frame eventually falls apart. Without boundaries, kindness collapses under its own weight. So, how do we stay kind without sacrificing ourselves? Practice self-compassion. Kristin Neff's work shows that even short exercises like placing your hand on your heart and speaking kindly to yourself reduces stress and increases resilience. Reparent your inner child. I ask my patients to imagine being the ideal mother to their inner child. Would you let others take advantage of your child? Would you dismiss your child's feelings? If not, then stop doing it to yourself. Notice your yes and no. Journaling when you feel resentful after saying yes helps reveal patterns of self-betrayal. Practice small no's. Saying no in low-stakes situations trains your nervous system to see boundaries as safe, not dangerous. Pause before responding. Even a few breaths before answering a request gives your authentic self a chance to speak before the automatic yes slips out. I will share a personal story. It's cultural self-sacrifice. When I was a full-time student and mother, I took care of my child, tutored her, did all the household chores, and cooked 5 to 10 dishes for every meal. One day, a friend dropped in and was shocked. She asked, "Why don't you just make 1 or 2 dishes?" I dismissed her comment because in my South Asian culture, food is love. Abundance in food equals abundance in care. It took me years to stop preparing so many items. Why? Culture told me sacrifice was love. Family reinforced that message. And I wanted to fulfill the cultural role of the good mother and wife. Without realizing it, I was betraying myself to maintain an image. Self-betrayal doesn't always look like abuse. It can look like spotless kitchen, endless meals, and exhaustion hidden behind a smile. So, when does kindness become self-betrayal? When it silences us, when it drains us, when it makes us invisible in the name of being good. True kindness grows not from abandoning ourselves, but from honoring ourselves. If this resonated with you, please share it, reflect on it, or simply carry it with you into your day. And I will leave you with this. When the jug is full, the water flows naturally. Thank you.